Hello ladies and gentlemen, it is I, Thomas fucking Ryan, and welcome to another video where I will be responding to the person I stole this intro from, apologies by the way, Amos fucking Yee. This guy is a Singaporean guy who made the headlines for getting arrested for criticizing Islam and Christianity, and for mocking the supreme leaders of Singapore's death. The guy who founded Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, I think his name was very authoritarian. And in general, the country is a little authoritarian, and it's a workers' shithole, pretty much. It's also very ultra-capitalist. But we're gonna be talking about this video he made, Amos, where he seems to have converted to fucking Ayn Randism. He seems to be fucking... It's not even that he converted to Ayn Randism, he seems to be a fucking right-wing ANCAP. Complete fucking right-wing ANCAP. I'm not even joking, this isn't even like libertarian. I mean, if I remember correctly, Ayn Rand, the whole Ayn Rand thing is a libertarian movement. Yeah, there's nothing libertarian about this. But anyways, let's watch it, and I'll respond point by point.
Let's strive for equality! Let's strive for equality!
Okay, that was pretty funny. That was pretty funny. I have to admit that was pretty funny.
Egalitarianism, a trend of thought that favors equality for all people, which is of course absolute bullshit.
Okay, let me cut you off there. Egalitarianism is a movement that favors equality, mostly under the law. There are people, first of all, it's equality of opportunity and equality under the law. Some people have this thing they call economic egalitarianism, something like that, which is the socialist type of egalitarianism. It's the equality of outcome one. But most people, when they say they're egalitarians, they aren't that. Most people who say they're egalitarian mean that they want equality under the law and equality of opportunity rather than outcome.
And is one of the few things I agree with dead Singapore dictator Lee Kuan Yew.
The human being is an unequal creature. This is a fact. And we start off with a proposition. All great religions, all great movements, all great political ideologies say, let us make the human being as equal as possible. In fact, he is not equal, never will be.
Oh, absolutely. Some people are better than others. Some people might, Here's the thing, right? Some fucking muscular guy who's also intelligent, even if he's like above average at most in intelligence, that guy's more likely to survive than the super intelligent the super intelligent like nerd guy who's an absolute fucking weakling. And that was the case back in the day because we were hunter-gatherers. We've always been some people have always been better than others, obviously, but that does not mean that we can't have equality of opportunity, that all people can't say be able to have the same opportunities. If you want to be an engineer, nothing mandates that because you aren't fucking buff and tough, you can't become an engineer. That's what egalitarianism ensures. At least egalitarianism I believe in. Well, believe in is kind of weird. I guess subscribe to. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Anyway, moving on.
Which is of course absolute bullshit. People are not equal. Let me make it clear that it's an empirical fact that social equality doesn't exist. Some people are better than others. For example,
according to Wikipedia, social equality is a state of affairs in which all people within a specific social society or isolated group have the same status in certain respects, often including civil rights, freedom of speech, property rights, and equal access to social goods and services. However, it also includes concepts of health equity and economic equality and other social securities. Now, what I think Amos is objecting to is health equity and economic equality. I doubt he's actually objecting to all people having the same civil rights, all people having freedom of speech, and all people having property rights, or equal access to social goods and services. Also, a correction there, people aren't societally better than others, people are biologically better than others. It's an important distinction to make, because we don't have an aristocracy, you know. We don't have an aristocracy. We don't have a fucking... I mean, technically, socially, they are better than others in the sense that, you know, someone who's rich is better than someone who's poor. But, you know, there are no social advantages that come with being in a certain class, other than, say, economic advantages. So, I don't see how there is social superiority in one group and not in the other, unless we're talking about countries where people are discriminated against.
I, a creative genius with an estimated IQ of 134, is worth more than a retarded person. Get over it. Depending on whatever factors an individual judges someone based on their own personal subjective judgment, one individual will be worth more than another. You might not want to admit it, but it's true. Equality really is a problem with the democratic process of electing. Really, everyone's vote should not be equal. People who are informed politically should have their vote be worth more than the politically apathetic, uninformed Joe.
I actually agree with him on this. You know, I think there should be like a fucking questionnaire. When you're going to the fucking ballot, the paper that's given for the vote should have like some sort of fucking questionnaire you need to fill out. And you're like fucking obligated to fill out if you want your vote to be valid. And like that questionnaire should be like, based on the answers you give to that questionnaire, you know, it will be a regularly updated type thing, you know, where based on like current events and like you know, it will ask about what party policies this party has, that party has, that party has, and what they think and all that shit. And it will be done so people who go in there will be judged based on how politically literate or how politically illiterate they are. And based on that, their vote will be worth more or less. Although, I think this actually will be a perfect setup for governments to create these weird, like, one-party states, kind of, like the one in Singapore. Say, for example, you know, with that quiz, like, this is the only flaw I found with this. Say, in that quiz, they say, well, you know, is this party that's currently the ruling party the greatest? And if you say, for example, write no underneath, you know, your vote is worth less than someone who says yes. That could be abused in all kinds of ways. But that's the best system I can imagine that actually works. Amos is gonna get in a minute. Amos is gonna explain his own little system that he has envisioned that would make this work. But yeah, I do think that people who actually follow politics should have their vote be worth more than people who don't follow politics but just get into this whole thing, you know, just for this one election or something.
Unfortunately, until science evolves where we have a device which is able to record the relative political knowledge of a person to see how much his vote is worth, sadly, there isn't a better alternative when voting. Yep, some races, genders, and statuses, attributes that you are born with, will be considered better than others.
Absolutely, but I don't see why these people should be denied opportunities because of those attributes. That isn't a fair system. But that could be just me.
Get over it. In my opinion, historically, Jews are the best race, whites are better than blacks, males are better than females, and Buddhism is better than Christianity and Islam.
Well, based on IQ, men and women are kind of on the same ground. Whites tend to have higher IQ than blacks. Asians have higher IQ than both whites and blacks. And well, Jews are good administrators when it comes to stuff like money or diplomacy or things like that, which is kind of a stereotype, but you do see it. You know, they seem to be taught this stuff from birth.
And that is absolutely fine. What is wrong with having a subjective opinion that one group is better than another?
I mean, I like cute, petite Slavic girls, so, you know, I can fault you for your own subjective opinion, man. You know, people have called me racist for not being too much into black women, but that's only because black women They don't have the face symmetry I want. They typically don't have the characteristics I want just in general. You know, they have these noses that aren't attractive. They have like these fucking faces that aren't attractive. It's, you know, it's my opinion, man. You know, it's my fucking preference. You know, why fucking judge? But society, yeah, society does that frequently. They do judge, and pisses me off. Just like, you know, just like it pisses you off.
Why do I have to be afraid to be sent to jail for it? Does that mean that I condone racism, sexism, and discrimination? Of course! And it's absolutely logical to do so. The issue is that society has made those words, racism, sexism, discrimination, have negative connotations when really think about it. Why should they? Think of the two disgusting movements in the West which sprung up because people tried to attain an equality that will never happen. The horrendous Black Lives Matter movement, and of course, the disgusting feminism. Retarded females and black people going on the streets fighting for an equality that doesn't exist, ironically giving people an even bigger reason why they should be discriminated even more. However, though I condone discrimination, I do not condone enslaving black people, not giving females the rights to vote, or making gay marriage illegal.
Okay, man, you know, I like your videos usually. I didn't like that one with the one you did about fucking child porn being illegal and shit. You know, but you know, I can just respectfully disagree with that one. I didn't really give a shit. You know, I just watched it. I was like, no, I disagree, but fine. I'll just fuck it. I'll respectfully disagree. I'll go my own way. You can go your own way, and we can agree to disagree. But this is fucking mental. This is fucking mental. You were like, well, you know, racism, discrimination, all these other words have negative connotations, and they should be fine. They shouldn't, you know, it doesn't make sense that they have negative connotations. And then next thing you say, well, I don't endorse, you know, slavery, you know, people being enslaved or people not being given the right to vote. Well, if you allow an environment where racism can grow and prosper, that is what's going to happen. It doesn't even matter if people have your definition of racism or anyone else's definition of racism. The moment you enable this type of racism, we're talking like racism, you know, actual discrimination here. If it's simply racism, it's harmless, you know, it's just a bunch of words. But here he's talking about discrimination. If you allow that, that's what it's gonna lead to. I mean, I think we are past, you know, racism being a big thing because most people don't want to be racist and they've already been taught the evils of racism. But, you know, this is what it's going to lead to.
I oppose those actions viciously because people are under a horrendous misconception. Those issues were not about achieving equality. Those issues were about attaining freedom. When Martin Luther King held his civil rights movement, it was not about attaining equality, although he claimed that it was. It was about attaining freedom for African blacks. When an action creates inequality, that's fine. When an action violates freedom, then that's wrong in my book.
Okay, that's a bunch of term-changing bullshit. Until Amos comes out and says, this is my definition of freedom, this is my definition of, you know, equality. It's just a bunch of word-changing bullshit. Because I can't respond to this, because I don't know what the fuck he thinks freedom is, and what the fuck he thinks equality is in his fucking head. But I can tell you he's solely mistaken if you look at the definitions of these fucking words. Also, I like this whole thing of, well, you know, Martin Luther King was saying he wants this thing, but he actually wanted that thing. As if you can tell. As if you can fucking tell.
Now, my anti-PAP videos are still excellent. But the biggest problem I found about my criticisms towards my totalitarian country, Singapore, is that I made it seem like income inequality was an issue. As Yaron Brook, the leader of the Ayn Rand Institute, mentions in his video trailer of his book, Equal is Unfair.
When J.K. Rowling wrote her Harry Potter books, she created something of value. A bunch of great stories that millions of people willingly and happily paid $20 a piece for. What happened to inequality? Rowling became a billionaire and inequality grew. But everyone was better off as a result. Inequality doesn't mean poverty. It just means we make different amounts of money because we produce different amounts of wealth.
This is why I said in the beginning that he converted to Ayn Randism. But he didn't just become a fucking Ayn Rand, like a fucking Ayn Rand supporter. He took it a fucking step further. He really did. But this is the thing, right? You know, wealth inequality doesn't fucking grow just because one person becomes a fucking billionaire. I mean, it does, but it does by a very small percentage. You'll notice something. You know, ultra-capitalist countries have some of the fucking highest income inequality ever. Countries, on the other hand, that have fucking, you know, that have like a more mixed system or a less capitalist approach, but still very capitalist, they work better. They work better. People earn money. People have money. You know, in those countries, the rich might earn like 2 times what a middle class person earns. You know, an upper class person will earn 2 times what a middle class person earns. A fucking, I don't know, 4 times what a lower class person earns. If you look at fucking capitalist countries, then the rich person will earn fucking 18 times the amount of money the poor person will earn. You know, being ultra-capitalist doesn't help people. And I thought that Amos would know that. You know, the workers in Singapore are treated like shit. I called Singapore a fucking workers' shithole because it is. And a workers' shithole is the exact opposite of fucking communism, the workers' paradise. Because in the workers' paradise, you're a fucking factory worker, earning more than a factory worker in a capitalist country would earn, but everyone else who isn't a factory worker has to earn the same amount of money as you do, and that's why it sucks. Well, in a capitalist country, in a fucking ultra-capitalist country, in the workers' shithole, you have workers that don't earn almost anything. They don't earn almost anything for their work. Now, of course, if these people fucking died, the entire system, the entire fucking country would collapse and fall into fucking anarchy. But let's not recognize their labor at all. Just let's not do that. That's a bit too communist for us. Those goddamn commies are trying to push us into that direction. No, we need to stick to true capitalism.
Minimum wage is implemented in several countries to help reduce income inequality.
Okay, I'm sorry for making a cut so early after the last one, but no, that's bullshit. It's not there to reduce income inequality. It's there to ensure that the people who, people can be paid like shit for their fucking work. If that wasn't there, you could technically pay a worker fucking 25 cents a week and get away with it. Which was the case in the 1800s and the early 1900s. You should really check that out, Amos. I think you'll find plenty of history about the workers' oppression in the 1800s and how socialism gradually grew because these factory workers effectively inhaled smoke and died at the age of 45 to simply not even make enough money to support their fucking families. Barely make enough to support their families.
By assisting the poor. That sounds noble, but what that actually entails is that an employer has to be forced into paying a set amount to an employee, even if the employer doesn't think that the employee deserves it.
First of all, the poor employer is forced to do something he doesn't want to do. Oh my god. That rich fat guy is forced to do something he doesn't want to do? Oh, I feel so fucking sorry. But, enough of that. And let's actually respond to this point now. Yes, that is what happens. But you know what the employer probably thought his workers, his employees' income, his employees' work was worth? You know what in his subjective opinion, his employees are worth? 30 cents, probably. 30 cents, $1, something like that. 30 cents, $1 a month. That's what his employees are worth. As I said, look at the 19th century. The shit you're proposing has happened in the past, and it hasn't fucking worked. And it has happened in the past, and it happened in the past so fucking much that socialism grew. And I'm scared because when socialism grows, communist countries form, and I don't want communism to be back in Europe. But that's what your path would lead us down. Aside from your country, if you implement these policies, aside from the fact that the country will be a shithole, it will then turn into a communist shithole, which will be even worse.
Currently, in Australia, the minimum wage is a ridiculous $17 per hour, claiming as though it's a fact that every person's work is worth that amount.
Okay, I have to agree here. $17 an hour is fucking lunacy. It is. I mean, Australia is rich enough to afford it, but it's still fucking lunacy. Jesus Christ.
Which it isn't. But what about unequal wages for the same amount of work? Isn't that bad? Most great employers wouldn't allow that.
You know, Amos, I'm a bit younger than you, and I will admit I haven't experienced a lot of the world. After all, I'm just a teenager. But, you know, I had this experience that really taught me something. And it taught me that relying on other people, this is going to sound very cynical, and this is going to sound very, people who disagree with it, but relying on other people, to a large extent, isn't healthy. It's not healthy. Even if you trust them, it's not healthy. I don't want to rely on a person's benevolence. Just, in this case, we're talking about people's people's lives, you know? What if you don't find one of those benevolent employees that you talk of, you know? What if you find one of the bad ones, one of the malevolent ones, the fucking robber barons? What if you find them, and he pays you 25 cents a fucking month? I mean, that's an exaggeration, you know, no one would pay you that low. But still, if he pays you quite low, so low in fact you can only like buy food for yourself, and you can't feed your wife or your kids. You're gonna have to give it to your kids and fucking starve yourself for that. I don't want that to be the case. I've already talked about, you know, workers' shitholes and, you know, the 19th century. I don't want to bring it up again. But yeah, relying on your employer's benevolence isn't a system I want to be in place. I don't want that to be in place. I don't want anyone to have to rely on anyone else's benevolence in any sort of system.
But if a bad employer wants to do so, he should be allowed to. It's his rights.
So, malevolent employers who want to pay their employees fucking 25 cents a month have the right to do so. Bravo!
The work you do might be the same, but you as an individual have unique attributes, gender, sex, etc., and can be judged for that when determining your pay.
So you're not only enabling malevolent robber barons, you're also enabling malevolent, racist, sexist robber barons. Good to know. Good to know. Bravo! Bravo, Amos! What a fantastic system you are advocating for, man. Love it. Wonderful.
No employee likes their pay to be judged based on their race or gender, but the quality of their work. But an employer might want to do that. So, that's fine.
And I want to cannibalize dead children. I mean, you know, I want to do it, so it's my right to do it, isn't it, Amos? In all seriousness, though, you know, that is your argument, Amos, really. Really, dude. You know, I expected more from you, man. You know, I've seen your videos on the fucking Quran, you know, I expected much more from you. Seriously, like, really, that is your argument. Really. Let's put the rights of the rich few above the rights of the masses. Good argument. Fantastic.
And the employer should not be penalized for that. If you don't like that, as an employee, then find another job or start your own company.
So Amos, since you don't like Singapore, and since you don't like how things are run in every other country, from what I'm guessing from this video, why don't you go do some fucking seasteading, you know? Go build your own fucking island and rule it like a fucking, I don't know, king, president, whatever the fuck you want to rule it as, man. And apply these fucking rules. Then we can put your theories to the test, man. Don't fuck up my country. Go create your own. And get all the other fucking ANCAPs to join you. Why the fuck not? You're gonna have a fucking party, most likely.
The most effective economic system to combat income inequality is socialism. The economic system that requires the rich to pay more taxes to fund government projects that assist the middle class and poor. So essentially, the economic system that violates human rights and condones stealing. It's funny how you can cover up stealing just because you're taking more money from the rich and calling it taxes. Fighting for equality leads to authoritarianism.
Nope. Fighting for economic equality and equality of outcome leads to authoritarianism.
Which is why it's very disturbing why two of my favorite atheist YouTubers are socialists. The rich should have the rights to decide whether they want to help the unfortunate. the government should not be able to steal from them to do so. Egalitarianism doesn't mean you are helping the poor rise up the social ladder. It means you're helping the poor rise up the social ladder by disenfranchising the rich.
You already know my response to this. There's no reason to repeat it.
Now you could argue that seeing the morals of these rich people, they don't deserve the money and luxuries that they have since birth, and we must stop that. However, the only way to stop that is by stealing and using a law to penalize the rich when they don't deserve it. So, fuck that. It is better to keep the world unfair than to take away somebody's freedom. Most of my viewers would not be rich white males and would be part of an inferior group, like me. But keep in mind, just because you're a part of an inferior group and people will have prejudices against you because you are part of an inferior group, that doesn't mean you are an inferior person. The most notable example is Ayn Rand, a female, but the greatest philosopher of all time.
Greatest philosopher of all time? What? Oh. What? What? No, wait. Step aside, Socrates. Step aside, Heinrich Heine, or any of you other guys. No, Ayn Rand is entering the fucking field, motherfuckers.
By far. I, Amos Yee, am middle class, and so I'm underprivileged. Fine. I lack many opportunities compared to the elite, so I'll work with all the resources that I have and try to create alternatives. And right now, I think I, and many other people agree, that I am better than most social elites. Fighting for equality is futile, because it doesn't exist. So accept that and move on. And maybe, just maybe, you can be one of those individuals that excels more than the elites, despite being underprivileged. So if I'm not wrong, according to American politics terminology, since I believe that social stratification and social inequality is inevitable, I am considered a right wing.
I believe that these concepts are inevitable as well. But I'm not right wing. But I guess, well, yeah, I'm left-leaning centrist. But I guess that's because, well, I also believe in shortening them as much as we can without doing what you've called taking from the rich and giving to the poor. You know, the good old Robin Hood strategy, I do think is kind of theft-y.
It seems, however, that right-wingers are typically associated with traditional conservatives, monarchists, fascists, and Nazis, i.e. the people who are fucking authoritarian assholes. But I'm not an authoritarian. I love innovation. And I think we can be sexist, racist, and discriminate without taking anybody's rights. In fact, aiming for equality, which is a leftist idea, leads to socialism, which is authoritarianism.
Did you really just do that? Did you seriously just fucking do that? You showed right-wing politics right there, and you said, well, the view that social inequality is inevitable is shared by monarchists, reactionaries, fascists, and Nazis, who are all authoritarian pricks, and I'm not an authoritarian prick. But by the way, guys, this hunt for equality definitely is, it leads to socialism, which is authoritarian. So wait a second, because you're right wing, you have the luxury of, not being a Nazi but believing that social inequality, income inequality is inevitable, say, that social inequality is inevitable. But I, as a left-wing person, I must be some fucking, as a left-wing person who believes in egalitarianism, I must be some fucking authoritarian socialist. Be consistent, man. Be consistent. If you don't have to be a fucking Nazi to believe that, social inequality is inevitable, then I don't have to be a fucking socialist to believe that egalitarianism is the way to go.
Which is the opposite of freedom. What an interesting paradox. But to hell with all this confusing jargon. My nipples are soft. To hell with the inferior group you are part of. You control your own destiny. Do the best you can in the game of life. Live long and prosper. For a better society, for a better world. Social and economic inequality rocks. Equality is fascism. Fuck egalitarianism.
And egalitarianism fucks you and your Ayn Rand boner back. Thank you so much for watching, people of the internets. I hope you found it entertaining. I hope you get some knowledge out of this. And Amos, if you're watching this, man, you know, I like you, man. I'm still gonna watch your videos, obviously. You know, you're cool. So, why the fuck not? We can disagree, I guess.